So the Torah portion this week really begins and has two of the most prominent examples of false and harmful speech in the Bible. So first, the Israelites complained, "This manna from heaven is terrible. The food was much better in Egypt." And then you have Aaron and Miriam complaining about Moses and Moses' family situation, and again, sort of people taking maybe a nugget of fact and turning it into a diatribe, turning it into a slur. And in both cases there, God responds, there's a plague, there's leprosy, God doesn't actually kindly visit disinformation. We live in a world where that's not the way this works, and so that's why I'm especially pleased that we have Rachael Stern as our guest tonight. A brief bio: she's the Director of Operations at TPS-IL, which is the Press Services of Israel, and she is dedicated to reshaping the media narrative to combat anti-Semitism. She was a lone soldier in the IDF's International Relations Unit. She studied counterterrorism and government at Rifle University, and she is a link between Israel and international news agencies, overseeing the certification of crucial videos and imagery, and facilitating partnerships, and especially after October 7th, getting the correct information out there and verified is more important than ever. She is also a member of the JNF Speakers Bureau, and so she talks to diverse audiences, talking first-hand accounts, news from the scene, and talking about how TPS brings accurate reporting from the field. And she has taken a proactive approach to partnerships, collaborations with the Philippines, 22 Latin American nations, the Czech Republic, and more. So getting to local news agencies and newspapers information that otherwise would be coming from Al Jazeera or worse. And her mission is to showcase the complex reality that is Israel, the challenges, the triumphs, but above all, the truth, reflecting her professional prowess and also her personal commitment to a cause I think is important to many of us here. That's enough introduction. She'll speak for herself about the incredible work that she does, and we're so grateful that you made this stop on your journey.
Thank you so much. I with very, very long speech because I think this is an issue that affects all of us sitting here tonight. I'll just say, first of all, thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for being here. I know you didn't
No, they did.
Well, I'm actually here, and I've just been in Atlanta for a couple days, but everybody that I've met is in Hong. I wanted to ask just a question before I begin. Who had been the recipient of a friend or a colleague or even a family member who told them something that they knew was inherently not true? Let's say they threw out a word, archive, genocide. Anybody just raise your hand? I'm just curious. Okay, yeah, wonderful. As the Director of Operations for Israel's only news agency, despite that, I have still lost all of my friends since October 7th in America. I grew up actually in West Virginia. I did not have a Jewish community, and I moved to Israel to work on farms. Then I joined the Army, and then I got into my career. My lecturer is actually my boss now. I told him, "You're going to give me a job." So it's the only viable solution to the problem that I faced. And all my friends now are older. Well, I hesitate to say old people, but all of my friends are older. Literally not younger than 60, because the people just don't get it. And honestly, they forwarded me articles from Al Jazeera. They forwarded me articles that I myself have witnessed being there physically present. But first of all, does anybody know what a news agency is?
Only the news people.
Okay. Okay, well I got one. Alright, so the point of me being here is really to explain to you what that is. Which is, a news agency has to be the source on the ground whenever there's a news event. That means that we're essentially the setup for news. So whenever there's, let's say, a stabbing in Jerusalem, which happens frequently, we have to be there on the scene to be able to disseminate that, what we get, to the rest of the world. Now, we have to be the source, the evidence, if you will, for news. There's only one of those in Israel, hence why we have such a problem, and that's us. And in comparison, the Gazans, they have 14 different news agencies, one of which has a budget of $33 million. Bless you. I know, it's crazy. Okay. And that's a problem. And that's a problem because these 14 news agencies, they feed into 3 of the major world contributors of news: AP, AFP, and Reuters. They make up 90% of the news. It doesn't matter the political spectrum. It doesn't matter if you're reading CNN. It doesn't matter if you're reading the New York Post, the New York Times, or the Wall Street Journal. It doesn't matter, because ultimately you're getting a copy and paste of the news agency news. And there's a problem with that, because it directly affects diaspora Jews when the information is incorrect. I mean, we all saw the Al-Ahli hospital bombing. What happened? Within moments, there was a report internationally: Israel has killed thousands of Palestinians. We still, to this day, have not seen a single body back, by the way. And we got, within moments, the Al Jazeera live footage of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad misfired rocket into the parking lot, hit a car, and there was an explosion. But it was reported by the entire international world. It got to the entire world within hours that it was because of Israel, and we killed thousands of people. And you know who suffered? It wasn't really Israel that day. That day. The next day, there was a 400% increase of anti-Semitic violence just in England. People were driving around cars, screaming horrible things, insidious things at Jewish people that had nothing to do with anything. Because we're the ones that are affected when something is misreported. And not just that, that led to incredible ramifications. I mean, Al-Ahli hospital bombing led to President Biden arriving, the next day in Israel. Not just, he wasn't allowed to meet anymore with Sisi from Egypt, Abdullah from Jordan, Abbas from the Palestinian Authority. 8 months later, and nothing has really changed. So basically, what we're saying is that because of all of this misreporting, the President of the United States was not able to meet with the real movers and shakers who could have ended this war. I mean, honestly, everything begins and ends with the news. We already know that, right? We know that in the States. So what am I presenting to you? Well, I work for the press service of Israel. We are the only news agency, wire service, that is there on the scene every time something happens. We do that through a network of about 450 different photojournalists, that every time we get a report coming in, because we're connected to all the FALDA-like institutions within Israel, secret services, etc. And whenever something happens, we send out somebody who is closest to the vicinity. They take a picture, they provide us with the context. Our professional news desk will then send that out and disseminate it to our news partnerships. To write my listing, we have many of them. Most of them are governmental, internationally. And the reason is because my boss said, when he organized this, he said, look, you can give somebody a picture, anybody a camera, and they're going to derive from that an opinion, right, a narrative. But if you give somebody else a picture of the person taking the picture, you provide them with a viewpoint. You provide them with a perspective. And that is what we're trying to do. On October 7th, I was in contact with Pakistan's largest news agency, because my boss and him had mingled, at some kind of news event in Azerbaijan the year before. And I said to him on that day, Ikram, you need to be forwarding this news. This is what's happening in Israel on the ground right now. He did. And that was the first time since 2002 where Daniel Pearl was murdered just for being an American Jew in Pakistan. And all of a sudden, now Pakistanis have access to a different narrative. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to change anybody's mind, per se, but it's going to plant the seed of opportunity for critical thought. And that's really what we can do. And that's what I said to myself when I lost my friends that had grown up with me, that know that I don't kill babies, that know that I'm in favor of apartheid, which, to be honest with you, I don't think most people understand the definitions of these terms that they're throwing out. I mean, to call me, a grandchildren of Holocaust survivors a Nazi is absurd, right? But at the end of the day, we're the ones who get the fire. And I said to myself, I can cut these people, or I can try my best to educate. And I'm still trying. It's not successful all the time. Some people are just anti-Semites. But I'm still doing the best I can. And I did this in my day-to-day work, because at the end of the day, Ikra sent that news piece to Pakistan. And that is amazing, because they have now an opportunity to talk. And that's what we're doing on a daily basis right now with India, with the UAE, with Kazakhstan, who, by the way, have one of the largest oil reserves. And if you remember 73, OPEC, that won't happen again when we develop relationships from the ground up. A lot of people can do the diplomatic handshaking. It's really critical, but but doesn't actually provide peace. When we need friends, when we need Azerbaijan to let us in and out, if you know what I mean, we need friends from the ground up. We need that, and through media. That's the only way that we can access the everyday person. It really is. So if you have any questions at all, please message me. If it's all right with you, I'll leave my card.
Please.
You know, there's a lot of ways that you can help us. We are an independent organization, and not just, we need to be, because we can't be under the heftiness and the bureaucracy of the Israeli government, who honestly has been discredited, unfortunately. In my opinion, classic elders of Zion anti-Semitism, really. But we move as fast as possible to get the story out to our partners internationally. We're reaching billions of people through news agencies. Because for every news agency, typically internationally, let's say India, who's a big customer of ours, we have over 400 different news networks that comprise these one news agencies. And that means that, like for India, we can get to billions of people with these stories. We will do that. But a lot of people don't really know who we are, what we're doing. And I'll leave you with this one last thing, because I don't want to take too much time. But everybody here, I'm sure, has some access to Israeli news, right? I mean, whether it's through an Israeli or whether it's through a network or an organization or an outlet that's in Israel, I'm pretty sure most of us are informed. But what about the rest of the world? Where did they get their news from? That's really critical. Because we see, and not to disparage, but we see who hired in freelancers that came in with the terrorists on October 7th. That was AP, that was CNN, that was Reuters. And not just, there's a picture, one of those very photographer freelancers is kissing Seymour on the cheek. And then we're asking ourselves, well, how did we get to this situation? Why is there so much violence against us? What did we do wrong? Well, look at the source of your news. Check the articles that you read, please. It's really critical, because you're going to know the narrative and you're going to know the intention behind the author. And unfortunately, all that money. So as Israel's only news agency, it's critical that we get not just to your local news, but also to these big mainstream news giants. Because otherwise we're losing the media battle unless we're the first headline. Okay.